Okay, guys, so it's been a while since I did a video reaction like this, and I haven't seen the video yet, but I thought I'd react today to the Greg Doucette and Seth Feroce video, which is bodybuilders are crazy, steroids are addictive. So let's see what they have to say here, and I'll give my input.
To make, because like it's you are who you run with. It's because drugs are fucked up. Because what we do is fucked up. It's crazy. It is, and I love it. We have these things inside of us that are unlike anyone else. Anybody that does these extreme things, there's no one like it. Powerlifters, bodybuilders, strong men, like, dude, we're talking some wild sons of bitches. I don't know too much about the powerlifting strongman community, but if you sit down and you have a round table of bodybuilders that are no cameras are on, nothing, and we're all like, there's nothing being recorded. Well, let's talk about the real stuff. Everybody's going to come out with the wildest stories you will ever hear. They will blow your mind from a dieting, a cardio, a training, a steroid, all these different things. You and I just happen to be a little more open about it because we're like, listen, if I don't tell these stories, it's never going to be out there and people aren't going to know, like trend cough. Like, there's times whenever you just take trend and all of a sudden you start coughing uncontrollably and turn purple. And coughing on the ground. People are like, what?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what we all gravitated towards, like with powerlifting, with bodybuilding, all this sort of thing. Like, it is extreme, and even myself, I'm obviously a lot less extreme than I was in the past, you know, getting out of the PED game and all that, but I still want to do extreme things. Like, I want to do, like, marathons and still be strong and deadlift 700 pounds, and, like, that's not normal. Most people aren't going to the gym and trying to deadlift 700 pounds. Have you ever thought about that? Most people are going to the gym and they're trying to get a pump. They're trying to look better. They're trying to do a little bit of cardio. So even to like try to have the desire to push for a 700-pound deadlift, that's not normal. That's extreme. And then when you tap into that as well and go, oh, and you want to do marathons and stuff as well at the same time. You want to be a hybrid athlete where you're like sort of jacked and you can run far and stuff. Like, that's super extreme. No one does that. So I find myself, some of us are just wired this way, where we just need that outlet. We need that extreme thing. And, you know, we're all chasing demons, man. We're all trying to hunt down these demons. Everybody has demons. Joe Rogan talked about this. Like, to make you do these crazy things, you have to have some demons. And rather than running away from the demons, I think we undertake these extreme pursuits because we're trying to chase down the demons. We're trying to confront them. We're trying to find out who we are. That's why we do it. And on a side note, the trend cough thing, like, yeah, I had that happen many times where I would be in my apartment on my hands and knees, like coughing as if I had bronchitis, like violently coughing for, I would say it lasts about a minute. It's hard to tell when you're in that moment. And it didn't happen all the time, but you could kind of feel this metallic taste build up in your throat. And then you would just start this violent cough. So I have been there myself.
Yeah, and then you just get up and do the other shoulder.
Absolutely. I've done the trend cough thing many times, and it doesn't stop. You're panicking. Am I going to have to call the hospital right now because I might die? But then you keep doing the other arm. It's the same thing.
But dude, if you had that round table, those are the things that happen. Like, whenever I got around other guys, there's stories about people that the stuff they've taken and the blood work they got back, and it's crazy, and you're like, man, like, you're just as screwed up as me. But we don't talk about that stuff because it's taboo, especially publicly, because then everybody's going to think you're a huge piece of shit. When you're not, you're just crazy. Because we love the crazy. I don't want to watch a fight that's just grappling. I want to see blood. I want to see somebody get split open with an elbow right above the eyeball. You know what I mean? That's what we're attracted to. We just like these things, and that's what we're in. You know, we're in that sport where we love to see the crazy stuff. The more shredded the guys are, the better. The bigger. I mean, Ronnie Coleman at 300 pounds on stage. It was the wildest sight. You were right there with me, probably watching it all. You're like, oh my God, this is nuts. Jay Cutler chasing Ronnie, one of the greatest rivalries in bodybuilding history. So I think that it's all there. It's all crazy. We just have to continue to talk about it so that more people understand it, because it's becoming a reality of people losing their life from this crazy stuff. And if you don't think you can, or you're going to be surprised whenever it occurs, like, you're mistaken. Like, it's going to occur. Like, I hate to say it, but Cedric isn't the only one that's going to pass this year. There's going to be more. And there's going to be more that you guys have no clue who they are. Like, these are just...
Yeah, and he brings up a good point that we don't even hear about all the people passing away. We just hear about the more nationally known people who pass away. But there's a lot of others who do the same thing and have heart attacks and stuff like that and strokes, and we don't hear about them. So what you hear is just the tip of the iceberg. And I think it's one of those things like, you know, we have to somewhat embrace that we are outliers. We are different. We're wired differently. I think a lot of you guys who watch the channel who do this kind of stuff, you may be wired differently. And you seek these extreme pursuits. And even I do as well, like I just talked about. I think I'm wired like that. I think I'm always going to be someone who seeks more extreme pursuits, and maybe the degree of how extreme they are can vary. Like some people do really crazy stuff. Like to me, I think jumping out of a plane, skydiving is crazy. I think, you know, some of this other stuff is crazy. But they may look at me and be like, well, what you do is crazy. So who's to say what's crazy? I don't know. But I think at the same time, there could be more productive, healthier ways to have an outlet. Because at the end of the day, the reason we seek this out is we need the outlet. But do you have to go to the lengths of which I have gone to and others are going to get that outlet? Like, do you have to take all the drugs? Do you have to make those life decisions where you're sacrificing your health? Or are there more productive, more balanced ways to be in this extreme mindset? And I think there are. So that's kind of what I'm more gravitating towards now, where I still have somewhat of that desire, not just for lifting and putting up as much weight as possible, because truthfully, my body does not like it. My body pushing heavy on everything and really pushing myself like I once did, my body does not enjoy that. The aches and pains are there, whereas they maybe didn't used to be as much. But even from the steroid standpoint, like, that's not productive, that's not healthy. So are there better ways to kind of get this out? And I think there are. I think like this sort of hybrid undertaking I'm doing is an example of that, where like I can not take anything and I can focus on trying to get stronger, while at the same time being in the best cardiovascular shape possible through the running. And running can be taken to an extreme where it's not healthy. I'm not going to say that running 100 miles is healthy, but at the same time, I think it's a much better alternative doing stuff like this where you're running and lifting. And I'm not going to be as strong as I would be if I was just lifting and taking anabolics and all that sort of thing. But I'm at peace with that. I'm at peace with knowing my body weight's going to be lighter, so my sleep apnea is going to be better. My blood work's going to look immaculate. My blood pressure is going to be lower than it ever has, things like that. And instead of deadlifting 900 pounds, I'll be deadlifting 600, 700, which, you know, by comparison is not very exciting. But knowing that you also have the health, and that I kind of think once you get to your 30s, you realize health is like such an important thing. You overlook it. The two things you're going to overlook in your 20s, and I'll pass this on to you other guys, some words of wisdom. You're going to overlook your health, and you're going to overlook your family. Those are the two things that are going to get kind of lost in the shuffle in your 20s. And I think once you hit that age of like 30, you start to realize it all starts to become clear. Family, whether it's your mom and dad, your sister or brother, your kids, your wife, all these sorts of, all these people in your life, they need to be a focal point, as well as maybe your relationship with the Lord, if that's a thing for you. And then also your health. You're not going to take your health as much for granted when you're 30 or when you get into your 30s, because things are going to start going wrong. Your body's not going to feel as good as it did in your 20s. So you just kind of have to realize what matters. And your 20s are a time for experimenting to some degree, but I would have done it a little differently if I could have. I wouldn't have gone to such extremes with anabolics, and I would have done it much smarter. So there are better ways to do it now, especially with the information that's out there, whereas we didn't have that in the past. Now, I'm not going to do this whole video because I don't want to make this over about 15 minutes, but we'll see what else they say here in the beginning.
Famous ones going, guys. Like, everybody's like, well, Nasser was older. Nasser was what? Nasser was 50, 57?
I have no idea how old he was. He wasn't old.
No, but I'm 37. Like, if you told me, Seth, you're going to die before you're 60, I'm going to be like, oh boy, I don't want to do that. My parents are 65. I'm like, I don't want to go that young. But whenever I was younger, I was like, I don't give a fuck. Let's go. That's old. It's mindsets change.
Yeah, absolutely. The younger people you are, I think you would take the magic pill to win the Olympic title, but when you're 40, 50, and you're like, wait a minute, I've had time to reflect. No, I want to be 100. There's none of this diet 60 thing anymore. And I think for me, I've been lucky because I've competed the natural thing for like 20 years. I did bodybuilding and I did powerlifting, so I got to experience both sides of it. I got to be the natural bodybuilder that hated the people using steroids, hated it because I'm competing. I'm like, I would blow you out of the water if I was taking what you're taking, and it was true. So I hated it, and I eventually switched over. And so I'm this Mr. Natural guy, and no one's telling me anything they're taking. Then all of a sudden, I'm talking to somebody, and it's like, yeah, competition, getting ready, taking it. I'm like, I'm on this, 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 and this. And they're all like, holy shit, you just said exactly, like, and then they're like, yeah, I'm on it too, because everyone's natural until you tell them what you're taking, then everyone comes out and says what you are. I remember one time I was talking to 3 girls, and I'm like, and I'm coaching the 3 girls, and they're all on Anavar. All 3 of them are saying they're natural to each other, and I was like, I felt like getting in a huddle and saying, you're all on Anavar. Like, but because they're all keeping it secret. So there's so many people using PDs, and I think people think they'll go to the gym and they'll point at you or me and say, yeah, those are the guys on gear, and all those people are natural. Meanwhile, half the people in the gym that are on gear, they don't look like they work out, and they're on them because they want to look like they work out. People have this misconception that if you take steroids, you're probably going to be a pro bodybuilder as long as you take high enough.
Yeah, this is true. Like, a lot of people are going to take anabolics and not look overly impressive. And I don't, I had the big neck and the big traps and all that sort of thing. But my arms only got up to like 18 and 3/4 inches. Like, I just wasn't, my legs were never that big. I was a big person, but it also took a lot of gear. And a lot of people, you'd be surprised, like the strength level isn't going to get there, or the size isn't going to be there. And a lot of that's genetic and such. So not everyone is going to look like crazy impressive or be crazy strong. That's just, and most of them won't. That's just how it goes. So it's tough to say. Again, comes back to the who's natty and who's not thing. And I don't know what to tell you guys, because it's a crapshoot. You could go into the Gold's Gym here in town, and I don't even live in that big of a city, 30,000 people, and a bunch of people would be on gear who aren't even lifting that much. And that's just the way it is. Like, gear is much more prominent than it ever has been. It's much more accessible. It's much cheaper. It's more accessible. It's not, there's not the risk you're going to get arrested. So for all those reasons, I would say it's more prominent as far as the use, because cops are not going to bust down your door for personal use. You don't have to worry about that anymore. Whereas in the early 2000s, up to like 2015, that was a real concern. Like, if you spoke openly about this, you were afraid you were going to get arrested. So that's one thing. The accessibility wasn't there as well. You would have to go to like some sketchy websites from foreign countries, and now it's all over the place. You can just ask somebody at the gym and that sort of thing. So the accessibility is a different thing as well. And it's a lot more out there now. So the prevalence is much higher, but people also are starting to understand that the consequences are also much higher than once thought. But if you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up, please, and I'll keep them coming. Subscribe if you would, and I'll try to keep growing the channel. Appreciate y'all.